And so I feel that wilderness is anything that is untouched by that.
I like that word, untouched. Mm-hmm. And even if before you went on to explain what you meant by untouched, I think that word says it strongly and loudly what wilderness is. Untouched by mankind, for sure. That's beautiful. Carl, you got any?
Well, wilderness for me, I'm a city boy, so I'm a little more... I don't look at it as beautifully as you and Zalim, I guess, and I'm more terrified. I'm thinking, dueling banjos and yeah, we'll just leave it at that for our audience. But yeah.
Okay. Well, this is what I wrote down: a voice crying out in the wilderness, isolation, alone, overwhelmed,
sure,
helpless, fearful of unknown sounds behind the sounds of the voices of the creatures in the wilderness. Somebody else had said, wilderness could be our very streets.
Really?
Because there's people everywhere, but they're disconnected. And they're like the trees in the wilderness. They're there, but it's just like a forest, and we're not seeing the people in the wilderness. In the minds and conversation of people who are walking and in the darkness, they're in the wilderness. They're in the sadness. They're in a place of they're in a bad place. That's all there's to it. The wilderness could also be in our homes. Solene, could you explain maybe what I mean by that, or do you can see what I might be meaning by that?
Wilderness in our home. That's a very, very intriguing concept, because for me, I would say that wilderness at home means that there is much disconnection to your own device. There's internal disconnections, and it's not really like disconnected like what you would think, a plug being unplugged, between a lamp and a wall. I think more like disaligned, like there are certain, parts of you that need to be realigned in order to, be attuned, and I think that's what you mean by wilderness at home, right?
Right. You said it when you said the word disconnect. If love is not found in a home, if you're disconnected from love, or if the word of God is not even heard in the home, if you're disconnected from God and the presence of God is not there, your home is a wilderness, and it's a sad wilderness. And I know many examples of those wilderness where there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment and bitterness and unhappy people, and they feel like they are in the darkness, and it's really sad. Okay, the next word, prepare. Salim?
Prepare?
Yeah, just don't try to make it. Just think of the word prepare. What one does to prepare.
One thinks of prepare and thinks, oh, I better prepare. Better prepare for that answer.
You want me to go to Carl first?
Well, prepare, I guess. I mean, get ready. I mean, it could be for any situation in life. Of course,
right.
I know in Scripture they're saying, prepare the way of the Lord and all this. So, it means like get your soul together and your spiritual life together and all that.
Right.
I would say it's like having forethought into something.
Yes.
Seeing it from, like how it's been going, where it's going to, and then seeing that things are going to change and that you're going to need to do something to adapt to that change. That's what's called preparation, or to prepare.
Again, you keep coming up with, you're not, you're giving this whole line, but I'm hearing boom, boom, like you're talking, you use the word adapt. You prepare, but then you use the word adapt, and I like that because there's a possibility of your plans not always going to go exactly the way you want them to, and you have to be pliable and ready to be pliable to adapt and to change. That's a good connection. So to prepare means that we have to be know ahead, be ready, like Carl said, for some purpose, use activity, put into a proper state of mind. These are definitions from the wherever I found a definition. To put in a proper state of mind is prepared to listen. Now, that's a good thing. If you're going to go anywhere and get anything accomplished, you have to be open to listen for directions and guidance, and you also prepare by planning things out, of course. Work out the details, plan in advance. One of the ways that I was thinking about preparing for the way of the Lord, Jesus was born in a stable and laid in the feeding trough. And I thought that was such an interesting connection to how he was put in the feeding trough and later he was put on the altar to feed the multitude. Isn't that something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, back to the feeding trough in the stable. One of the things that when I was doing this preparation for this show, was interesting sidebar. Repeated archaeologists excavations have not found any artifacts during the first centuries before Christ in Bethlehem in Judea. And Bethlehem in Judea was abandoned for at least a century before and after the birth of Jesus. Now, I did not know this, but there was another Bethlehem in Galilee, only 4 miles from Nazareth. And he says, I think the genuine site of the Nativity is here rather than the well-known site near Jerusalem. Bethlehem in Galilee was inhabited by the Jews at the time of Jesus, whereas the other Bethlehem, ? Because it was abandoned about a century before and after the birth of Jesus. So there's no evidence that it was a living site or an inhabited area at the first century. It makes more sense for Mary to ride a donkey from Nazareth to Bethlehem, which is only 7 kilometers, rather than to the other Bethlehem, which is 150 kilometers. Now, that was just a side note of interest. I thought that was really interesting to think that there's a possibility that, again, we got it all wrong, that the site of Bethlehem was the smaller Bethlehem about 4 miles from Nazareth. Makes sense to me, too. But anyhow, but there was that census that went out. So, again, we need to know where they were called to go be recorded. But they went to Bethlehem because that's where they were supposed to be. But it could have been that Bethlehem. All right, back to we were on prepare. And one of the ways to prepare was that stable as an example. Jesus always chose to go to the simple, the uncluttered, the humble. But the word is simple, humble. He chose to go to the poor. And so let us realize that when we are preparing for him to come, we want to make sure that we are humble and set free and detached from all those worldly possessions, interests, opinions, and things like that keep us too much into the things of the world, the clutter, the material possessions, all those things. Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you take your everyday life, Soleim, and you tell me how your everyday life goes when you've got your mind too much and I got to do this and I got to do that and blah, 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 and there you go. How quickly does your peace fly?
Well, what peace is there when one is continually thinking about what may happen rather than living in the present moment? What is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see any peace in that.
There isn't any peace in that. We must find peace in the now and be content with the now and what is, instead of always, why can't I have this, or why can't I reach this, or why can't I attain that? Like one of the things that has been pulling me in the wrong direction was at my age, you start to think in terms of, well, did I succeed when I did this or did that, or I start to think in terms of the what ifs and could I have done better, et cetera, and so forth and so on. And especially as I've been dealing with my physical weakness, and I realize that I may not be able to do much anymore. And there is this inner battle that starts to come up within your mind and your spirit. And you're right, your peace goes flying out the door when you start to go in that direction. And you're unhappy and you're sad. And God has to say, oh, no, she's at it again. And that's because I've done that many times. So we want to be contented with what is and happy with what is and know that there is always, what you have is best. And if it's not best, then you'll be told that and you need to go find a different direction to get in there. But do try to live simply, and you find more peace in your life when you do. Let me see, there was something the way. Okay, now we're getting into, so if we want to prepare for God to come in our life, we need to detach. We need to think of wilderness and in the positive kind of way and draw away to pray more and to draw away to find peace in the simplicity of life and just take those deep breaths and enjoy the fact that we are and we are alive. And we got some awesome people that love us and that we love dearly. Like today, I went down to the nursing home where I have a large family that I took care of for a year. A lot of the members are at this nursing home now about 6 miles down the road. And I know one of them is dying of stage 4 cancer, and I made sure I was getting back down there to see her. But I went back down there simply because I need to be hugged. I need to be hugged. And I played the piano more than I sang. But at the end, after playing, when you walk through a storm on the piano, I turned around and I said, I've got to sing this for you. And I didn't know it, but all the while I was sitting there playing the piano, the room was filling up. There was only maybe about, less than 10 people in the room when I started playing. But when I turned around, the whole room was full, and I'm going, oh, okay. In fact, one time I got up to go home, and the woman said, well, thank you so much. I was really enjoying that. And I said, well, I'll play some more for you. And the room continued to fill up because they heard the piano play. But I sang that Walk Through the Storm for them, and then the guy asked me to sing on the Old Rugged Cross, too. And it was such a blessing. It was things that I needed in my heart, in the people's love, and so giving of yourself is a good way to prepare for the coming of Christ, because when you're giving love, you're receiving it back as you give. I mean, there's this open door immediately that the flood's coming back towards you of all this love that, you're going out there giving away, but you're getting it immediately back. Just awesome. So, the way, prepare ye the way. Any thoughts on the way?
The way?
Well, I would say, as far as you mean a guidance for life, or what? You mean what it means to us, or defining it in these other things?
I have a question, or not a question, but I do have a reference point when you say the way. The way to the light, so to speak, right? The way of the master. The thing is, I've started to study a little bit of Eastern philosophy, and I found a lot of ties between Taoism and Judaism, which is where Christianity stems from as well. And I find that there's a very, very particularly interesting relationship between the two, because they both focus in on the way of the master, because it's not because the master is right all the time, but rather because through the steps that the master gives you through, you're able to find enlightenment and attainment. You're able to find God. You're able to be in touch with God. You're able to enter into Jesus's home. That's what I mean
Very
to say.
good. You did it again. And the word you said, the way of the master. So we prepare